Hello and welcome to Shop Talk with Dan the Man. Today's video we're going to review this. This is Ridgid's heavy duty compact miter saw stand. Stay tuned to find out more.
Hello, if you're new to this channel, my name is Dan Shannon. I enjoy woodworking as a hobby and being out in the shop. On this channel, dive deep into my shop as we explore tools and tool reviews, as well as chatting about everything related to woodworking. If this grabs you by the tool belt, please subscribe to my channel if you want more videos like this.
Welcome back to Shop Talk Dan the Man. Today's video we're going to review this. This is Ridgid's compact miter saw, and this is their heavy duty stand, so it's made for the toughest jobs. And let's see, the model number is AC9960. So that's the model number, and this can hold 350 pounds. So that's the max load that you can put on the stand, and Ridgid claims this is their heavy duty stand version, so great for construction, great for the average homeowner. And the reason why I bought this one is you can see my miter saw off to the side is not quite long enough for any material. I need to take it off the counter and put it on a stand. So it's great when I cut small stuff, but of course anything longer, it becomes an issue. So that's why I bought this. I can set it up on the floor, pull my saw, it snaps into this stand, and I just cut away. So let's go over the features of the stand. So I'll show you the features, then we'll jump into the hands-on. How does it work with your saw? How does it feel? Can it handle the weight just fine? And you know, kind of the overall feel for the stand. And then we'll jump into some final thoughts on this stand in general. So let's jump into the overall specs and features of this stand. So features. Okay, so you're going to notice right off the features of the stand. You have 4 legs on this, and each leg has a button that will snap into its place. And what I like about this stand in particular, normally you have to press in on the side button, but with these they have nice little handles that pull that side button out, and then you can just bring it up and it locks in place. So it's not going anywhere. You do the same with the other side until it locks in place. And like I say, I really like these handles that they have here. It makes sure the leg locks. You don't have to push in on the side button. That's kind of a pain. I didn't like that in other products that I've used, but these handles are really nice for doing that. And then you just come down and do the same with the base. Squeeze in, the legs go down, snaps in place. Squeeze in, legs go down, snaps in place. So now that you have your legs fully out, you can set up your stand. Now what I recommend, there is quite a bit of weight on the base here. You do have wheels to move this around, and you do have a nice handle. So I would recommend doing it the opposite way, spin it around. That way you have this handle to pull up on the entire unit. So I'll just show you how I'd normally set this up. I just have it facing you so you can see how the legs go into place. So I'll spin this around and show you how I set it up. Now that I have the stand, the legs facing me, they have this nice handle. So I just put my foot down on one of the bottom legs, just pull this towards me, and the whole stand will go down to the ground just like that. And if you want to move it, you can just pick up on the center and move it to wherever you'd like. I'm going to put this way just so you can see what it looks like on the side. You do have these side extensions that are great for cutting your material. So I will change the angle so that you can see the features on the end. So your end feature, you have this roller. So when you have your saw on, your material will go across the roller. So to get that level with your saw, I'll show that later on, you just raise it up, put your material on it, and then just tighten this knob here. If you have longer material, so say you have a 6-foot board on this end and you want it to go out, it can go out quite easy. There's a lever right here. You just bring that lever up and the whole thing slides over, as you can see there. So that gives you your full length, and you can tell with the stand, once you have the same length on either side, it does, I believe, 9 feet for your material, which is really nice. And once again, you can also use this as a stop block. So it has a nice little angle here, so you can bring in your material and then tighten this up. So if you wanted to cut, say, 48 inches, you can put your board in there to the blade, measure it, and that will be a stop block. So that's a great feature. I'm really glad that Ridgid designed it. So you could have your material rest on top and roll, or you could drop it down and use it as a stop block feature. If you're cutting, say, decking and you want to do multiple boards, you just slide it into this notch, cut it, and repeat that for as many boards as you need. So I really like that feature. And when you're done with it, you can just slide it back in and then, of course, lock it down. Another thing to note is when you have your saw on this, you might want to, since your wheels, and this is very narrow, you might want to raise this up so that when the unit is upright, you have a wider base so it doesn't tip over. I've experienced that and learned that that's what you want to do to give you a wider, so it's not as top heavy for tipping. Just make sure that's up when you're done with using it. All right, and the other end is basically the same thing. It has a lock mechanism. This time it's in the front. You just pull it up and then your thing slides out. Now, since I got my product shelf or roller is too low, of course the handle will grab it, so I kept it low for storage, but you can just raise that up, lock it in place, and then extend the roller as far as you need, and then lock it back in. So for features, other than the 2 trays on the unit itself, and these are great for tape measure, pencils, really anything that you would use while you're cutting on either side. And if you don't like them, there's 3 screws. You can just back these screws out and the trays are removable. So great job, Ridgid, on that. And then of course your bottom here, you have your wheels. So when you're done, you can wheel it away from the job site. You can actually keep your saw mounted to this stand. If your saw, now I will say, the only issue is if you have a heavy saw like mine, once you get the saw clamped on here, the weight of the saw, and when you tip it up, so I'll just bring this in now and I'll show you what I mean. So say you're all done for the day, you have your saw on here and you want to tip it down. my saw is quite heavy, and there's a lot of weight resting on these two legs and this push button for your locking mechanism, and that's way too much weight to have suspended in the air like that. It's resting all on those two legs. So I would recommend not having your saw attached, or at least in my case. If you have a smaller miter saw, just a regular saws, or even the battery versions that Ridgid has, you wouldn't have to worry so much about the weight load. But I had my saw on, and I can tell you it's not good. So let's jump into how you put the saw on this stand, and yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, so I have my saw over here on my workbench, and I want to put it on my stand. Now, these two tracks, I'll show you once I get it mounted, kind of how they work, but I already have them mounted to the saw just to save on time. So I'll just lower this so you can see it a little bit better. So you just grab your saw, make sure it's unplugged. In this case, my saw, I have a sliding miter saw, Ridgid's 10-inch. So I just want to grab it as carefully as possible. It does have some weight to it, so just take your time with this. You want to grab your saw, bring it over, and if you need a minute to catch your breath or kind of stabilize it, what you want to do is make sure these two front pieces are unlocked on either side, which they are. Make sure your front is lined up. So there's a cutout in the front. As you can see there, the back is pretty well flat. So you want to make sure that hook kind of hooks in through the front and then push the back down, and it just stays in place. And what's also great, and Ridgid has these really nice adjustments. So if your saw is wider, narrower, you can just loosen these bolts, and there's a track system, so you can slide your saw back and forth. They do have a how-to to install these two track systems to your saw. You put a 2x4 underneath, or 2x6, whatever you have, and then you slide the track and then mount the bolts. But you do it loosely so that when you put it on the stand, you can tighten them up just so it's not at a slight angle or anything weird. But you can look into the manual for that. But once that's on there, you can slide the saw back and forth on the stand. So if you're cutting material, say, off to the right, and you need that extra length, or if you're cutting material to the left, you can slide the saw both ways. And then once you get the saw where you want, I'll just keep it in the middle just because I'm not cutting on either side right now. And then you just lock it in place, and you'll hear the snap. And then you go to the other side, same thing. Hear the snap. So that's on there really good. It's not going anywhere. There is an adjustment screw on the back side of this. So if you find that the tracks won't lock, and I really recommend doing these tracks first on your stand just to make sure the adjustments are correct for this locking mechanism, because you don't want to force it. It's got to be snug but not too tight. And that's pretty much all there is to the features. The adjustment screw for the track, like I mentioned. And once your saw is on there, you know it's locked in place. You can't go anywhere. This is a very sturdy stand. It's not going anywhere. I can't seem to move it. So you don't have to worry if you're cutting anything with your saw. It's not going to go anywhere or move on you. It's very well built. You know, the overhang, even on this side and that side, they designed it in such a way that the weight can balance quite well on this unit. I did center the saw with the stand as best I could. If you find it not quite balanced, you can just loosen these bolts and slide it back and forth until you get that comfortable amount. But yeah, if you center this, you should be fine. And I did say about these trays, why would you take them out? Well, if you unlock these 2 tracks and you slide this all the way, you'll notice it hits the tray. So I'm maxed out, I can't move this any further. So I guess if you're cutting material on your left and you had a really long piece and you needed that extra, 12 inches or so, you could pull the tray out, bring the saw all the way to the end, and then get your material cut. But right now, I haven't cut anything that long, and I don't anticipate that I will. So I'm going to leave the trays in there for now. But in the future, if you want to pull the trays out, that's why Ridgid put them in with screws. You can just pop them out, easy peasy, good to go. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for features. And like I mentioned, with this saw, just make sure that you have these bolts loose before you put the track on, because you don't want to bind anything or break anything. And then to disengage these locks, there's a little push switch underneath. You kind of just flick it towards yourself and it releases it, just like you would on a clamp, and that's it. So undo, undo. And then to take this saw off, it's the same principle. You just lean it towards yourself, pops right off the back side, and you just lift it up. So very straightforward, very easy to install. If you're loading it in a truck for the job site and you have a bigger saw like this and you know it's too much weight, it is nice that you can remove it. But if you have a smaller saw, I recommend locking these, and then of course you can just fold the legs and the whole thing will tip, but not with this because it's too heavy. All right, so let's go into the hands-on and see how this saw performs with the 2 end pieces and the adjustments and different things like that. So let's jump into that now. Hands-on. Okay, so I have the saw set up. It's locked in place in the track exactly where I want it. I do have a longer board that I want to cut. As you can see, the tipping point is quite bad for this saw. So what I want to do is first get my measurement. So I'll measure it, draw a line, and then since this is scrap and I'm not too concerned about the measurement part, I'm just going to cut it wherever. So what I want to do is I want to go over to the side here and raise this up, this roller, until it touches to give me the height that I need. And once I get that, I can just lock it in place, just like that there. And you can double check, make sure it rolls, so I know that it's exactly where it needs to be height-wise, and then I can cut this. Also, I did mention before, if your material's longer, you can unclamp it, slide this out even further to make sure your material is being held by that end, and of course lock it back in place so that you're not having any weirdness going while you're cutting. So you definitely don't want this tipping down and having any safety issues. And you can also use the stop feature that I mentioned. So to do that, I'll just bring it in a little closer. Say I wanted to do a bunch of cuts the same length, I can just raise this up. The board rests on this little shelf here. Lock it in place. And then from here on is the exact length that I would repeat the cut. So if I'm doing multiple pieces, that's a great stop block that I can use for this setup. So I really like that, especially if you're doing, say, decking. I'm going to be doing a kitchen reno soon. I'm going to be doing a backsplash. So along the back wall, it'd be pretty consistent for my height, so I can just go along and cut the boards and use this feature for that. So that's a great thing that Ridgid has for this product. The roller, the arms that go way out, and overall it's very secure. It's nice and solid. And yeah, so let's do a cut now and see how it handles. So at 0, just going to lock it in, and this is the cut that I'm going to do. So you want to make sure you have eye protection and ear protection. So I got my eye protection and my ear protection on. And then make sure that's butted up against. Always double check your measurement. And with this saw, I have a LED light, so it creates a shadow on the board to let me know where that cut will be made. All right, so let's just cut this now. All right, so you can see right there that this saw made that cut very easily. I do have a crosscut blade on here, and this is a Diablo blade that I bought, and cuts through there no problem, very easy. But I really enjoy this setup that I have with this stand. Everything's secure. I can cut for a long time knowing that my saw is not shaky. I can do all my different angles, do all my different bevels, and go from there. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the saw. To remove it, like I showed you earlier, just unclamp these two, rock the saw towards you, pick it off, and move it out of the way. And this saw folds up the same as we set it up, so I will just show you that now, how the saw comes apart. So what you want to do is remove your product. Make sure your saw is locked in place. Make sure it's unplugged. Grab your cable. Make sure it's out of the way so you're not going to trip over it. Once that's done, I'm going to angle the saw because it's quite big this way. I can't quite get in the center. So for a sliding miter, you can just move it to the side, lock it in place. That way you can go in and you're not overhanging when you're trying to lift it, because a lot of weight stretches out on your back because of the extra distance you have to go in front of you. So just kind of make it a little bit more balanced for weight. You just unclip these. Okay, and we just rock it towards us. Lift it off. I'm going to set it over here. Okay, and now that the saw is off, we can leave this out, and I'll show you that in a minute. We'll leave this high. You can actually go all the way. Lock it in place. And like I said, if you have a smaller chop saw that doesn't have a lot of weight, you can leave it on here. But my saw weighs a lot, and over time it's going to damage these legs and probably bend that metal, just because it's a lot of weight hanging up in the air on those two pivot points. So yeah, once that's set up like that, you have the saw removed. You can just pick up the entire unit and drop it down. I'll wheel it over here a bit more. And then your legs, so your bottom legs we did second. So you want to fold them up first, and you can tell the difference in the height of your bottom legs versus your top legs. They won't collapse correctly. So if you do the top one first, you see how there's a gap here. That's where your bottom leg goes. So if you mess that order up, it's not a big deal, but just start with the bottom ones. So push in on the lever, push in on the lever. You'll hear it snap in. Push in on the lever, push in on the lever, and that's it. So bottom first, top, they're locked in. And as you can see, the base, you get that extra width. So if you have weight up here, it's not gonna tip as easy when you're storing it. So if you have it on the saw, you just want to make sure, or the saw on the stand rather, you just want to make sure that that base is out further so it won't become as top heavy when you're storing it. But for me, like I said, I'll always remove the saw from the stand. All right, so that concludes this features and kind of the hands-on. We made a cut with it, showed you how stable it was. Just a great product. So let's jump into some final thoughts. Okay, some final thoughts on this stand. Would I recommend this stand for your job needs, or maybe in a shop that you need it for a hobby, or construction site? Absolutely. This stand does have a couple drawbacks. Based on the size of your saw, it might not be able to be tipped up or stay mounted. I ran into that issue, but to be honest, I'm not going to haul this on the stand too often. When I do, I'll just remove the saw, but like I say, if you have a smaller saw, it'll handle it just fine. And you can also get DeWalt makes a longer body for their stand, so it is quite a bit longer. So depending on what you're doing for your job, the saw stand might not be the right length, just because it's a shorter profile than some of the bigger units. So everything has to do with what you're doing and the tool that's meant for the certain job that you're performing. This stand will suit my needs just fine. Hopefully it will suit your needs just fine. If you're just using your saw every so often, or if you're using it full time, the stand is heavy duty. It's built very well. Materials they use, Ridgid uses, are very tough. Just like their saws, I find their saws very well built, all solid metal. That's where the weight comes from, but also long-term durability is factored into that as well. So, and just like any other Ridgid tool, you have your LSA, the Lifetime Service Agreement. Don't forget to go online and register this stand, just because if anything breaks on it, say a leg gets bent, something happens, materials do break down over time. You could get it replaced. Maybe your tire after a while might get broke, who knows. Things happen, and Ridgid is there to make sure you're up and running and working with a new stand or a fixed stand in no time. So that's my overall takeaway with the stand for my shop and what I'm using it for. And like I say, I can't cut big materials on my workbench over here. It's not long enough. So primarily why I bought the stand was simply that. Thanks for watching today's video, and if you're not already and you'd like to be part of the Shop Talk family, please click on that subscribe button down below. We'd love to have you on board. And as always, have yourself a great day, and I will catch you on the next video.